And welcome. I'm Sarah Liz from Sassy's LLC, and I have a card I have been dying to share with you. I have a light up Jackpot slot machine. My friends, the minute I saw this die, I knew I wanted to light it up. There's so many different places where you could put lights, and we're going to talk our way through that. There's also tons of different things you can put on the slot machine to make this masculine or feminine, however you want to do it. The star of the show is the Love Wins slot machine from HoneyBee Stamps. I have just the die set, though there's a whole collection that kind of goes with that. Then I have a Streamers red rubber background stamp, some Twinkle Lights from Pear Blossom Press because these are my favorites. You guys, I'm running low again. I'm down to 3. Oh, it's going to be fine. And then we're going to use the press stamp and die set from Pear Blossom. There's a little die in the back that will create like an escape hatch so you can replace your battery. Then, of course, the world's best foam tape, and we're going to break out an older emergency card kit that came out in January. We're going to use this happy birthday as the sentiment on our slot machine, but I will link below to that emergency card kit if you want to get back to that one. It is absolutely huge and has tons of birthday goodies. So here are the dies that are in the slot machine that I'm using. And again, there's lots of other options, but I went with the fruit. I really liked something bright and colorful. And yet my slot machine is blue. So I feel like I don't quite know who's getting this card yet, but this could go masculine or feminine. I am putting together like the little buttons that are going to go in the row on the bottom. And they're going to be really easy to arrange on that sort of white. It's like a fog colored base that I was showing you at the beginning because it's got these great debossed details showing you exactly where everything goes. I've got a lemon and a strawberry and some cherries. The lemon isn't supposed to, I guess, have leaves on it, but it's got to, right? Like I want that pop of green to go with my yellow. And then the cherries are little hearts. This came out around Valentine's Day, so I think that was their nod to the season, the holiday that was nearby. But that doesn't bother me at all. Sometimes when things come out around Valentine's Day, I worry that they have really limited use. Like they really sort of say that's the product and the season and the holiday that I'm for, but this one doesn't. As we continue assembling the die cuts, I do want to let you know I understand that I'm showing you a die set here that is a little pricey. I asked for this for my birthday, right? Like I knew I wanted it. I knew it was like a really specific something. So I did, in the meantime, start looking for alternatives, other things I could light up. Gambling items are really popular in crafting right now. Spellbinders has a whole line of playing cards and better press items that are absolutely gorgeous, and dies. I didn't get them and I'm like kicking myself for it. But to light up, I will say Crafter's Companion has some items that are smaller than this that might work. So there's one, and I'll try to link to alternatives below, but it's part of their Vintage Vegas collection. And it's not a whole slot machine. It's like just the part where the 7 and the spade and the whatever would come up. And it's like $9. And you absolutely could add lights right around the outside of that instead of doing an entire slot machine. And then Pink and Main has a really cute slot machine stamp set. So again, lots of ways to do something really similar and keep the price point down. Probably if you went looking, you could find some ephemera or some printable digital images that you could light up for this, because by the time you put lights in a card, like, do you need to be assembling the giantest pile of die cuts? I don't know. So this is why I picked this one in the end, is that I like that there's that little string of lights that goes around the outside of like the Jackpot and the sentiment we're going to put on the bottom. I used the holes that were in the die and an alcohol marker over some glitter cardstock to turn those yellow, but certainly you could just go in and freehand that, but I couldn't find my glasses. And so there was no way I was going to stay kind of within the circle of those. So I am peeling the backing off of the word Jackpot. I cut it out with some, it might have been rip and stick tape from Trinity. It might have been scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive. I have lots that I really love. For something like this, it doesn't really matter which one. It's not like I'm trying to hold together an interactive mechanism, but it turns them into stickers. And then I've used sort of the negative piece to line them up on this yellow piece. So the yellow piece has the lights that kind of go around the outside, but they aren't attached. I just kept them together so I would know where my spacing needed to be. Then I have the lights around the outside just sitting on my card. I'm going to lift it off here, but I wanted to get my placement right. There is a little bit of deboss detail to show you where that piece goes, and I wanted to make sure I got it right. Then I have lights that will go around the bottom as well. Again, I've colored all of these in yellow. I'm not going to glue the top ones on yet. That's where my lights are going to go, and I wasn't quite sure if I could cover up the light and still see it or how that would work. So this was me kind of figuring that out. When I set the lights down on the bottom, I ended up quickly grabbing the inner piece to make sure it was going to fit snugly right up against it. I'm going to cut out my sentiment, and I wanted to make sure that it was going to fit right. So there are some little like twinkly bits that I'm putting on the top. You could light those up instead of the lights around the word Jackpot. You could light up the buttons that are red on our blue cardstock. You could light up like the little light that goes on top and just use a one light, which is a fantastic way to go about this. And you can use some less expensive lights. You could put the fruit and things on vellum and light up behind them. Like that would be amazing. I couldn't decide. And in the end, I was like, let's make it twinkle because these are my faves. But there are lots of ways to do it. I have not put the red part on the big button yet because I'm going to stamp press from the press stamp and die combo. And I wanted to make sure that I did it right before I went gluing it on there. I am going to free range stamp this. And guess what? It's going to go okay. I did use my bone folder to sort of flatten out the deboss detail on that button. Otherwise, like it doesn't work as well. I tried it again on a second one because I had to cut and I didn't flatten it. Not great. So here is the die that cuts out the lights, and I am just going to frame this happy birthday. Again, this is a free printable sentiment from Kit 55 that I put out in January. I will link below to that video so that you can get back to it and you can download those same sentiments for free. If you're new here, I release free printable sentiments a couple times a month. So I cut that out and I went to set it on my card and I was like, that looks really plain. So we're going to foil it. I have some Deco foil and it's black. It's not even shimmer black, but it's super glossy. I printed those with my laser printer. So this will only work if it was printed with a laser printer with toner. And then I ran it through my mini Minc on heat level 3. I do this a lot. I know exactly what heat level I need. I'm going to peel that off slowly. And I saw that there was one little bit, and honestly, there's dust back there. There was one little bit that didn't stick. Normally, I would like dust that off. I didn't do it. It's going to be fine. Right? It is black on black. Most people won't notice, but there is incredible shine on that. It makes it feel just a little bit fancier than it did when I was just using the printed sentiment. So I can go ahead and stick that down into the bottom. I can add my push button onto my big button, right? And I can put the button for our lights right behind there. A lot of times I don't stamp press or push onto my card. I don't want to interrupt the design, but this one, it just made sense. I'm going around my Jackpot and I'm sort of looking at where those strands of lights are, and I'm going to pick 3 spots that aren't evenly spaced, but still give me some good distance from one to the next. And I'm just going to poke holes with my little pokey tool. This is my Trinity Stamps pickup stick. There's lots of companies that make these, but I tell you what, I really love this one. It's pretty great. It's got a wax tip on one end. And the pokey tool gets thicker as you go towards the base of it. And so I shoved it all the way through there for the biggest possible hole. Most of our background is going to get covered up, so I am going to keep this pretty simple. I have this streamers background die, and it's actually a pull apart. This isn't the whole thing. There's another piece you can put on there, so it's closer to a 6x6. And I am going to stamp this onto some white shimmer cardstock. I'm starting with a light gray ink, and I'll stamp the whole thing. And then I'm going to get fancy in a way that really doesn't matter. Friends, anyway, I thought this would be more striking than it was, and also that less of it would get covered up. But I'll show you what I did all the same. I took some darker gray ink on the top and in the middle, and then I'm just dabbing around the edges with my like cleanup cloth to make sure that I don't have a stark line. And you can see I've got like dark to light to dark to light. It's really pretty. I especially like doing that in color. The gray was, it's just a background. It's going to be fine, but I did it and you're going to see it. So now you know how. Here's my little light that goes on the top. And then I have the little lever that's going to go on the side. I almost forgot to put it on there. I tell you what, that lever becomes a brave thing because I decided to pop up just the slot machine and not the entire front card panel. But it works out and I'm really proud of myself. So here's a twinkle light. I just put a battery in there and I push the button and there are 3 different lights and they twinkle on and off at different intervals. And it's so easy to use and it's such a huge impact. I've kind of flipped it over and I'm using my finger to keep track of where that button is that we stamped push onto. And then when I flip this over, I want the button for like my battery pack here to be in the same spot and I'm going to trace around it. It's important to note that it looks like it's upside down and it's only very loosely taped to my slot machine. I'm placing the slot machine where I think it's going to go on the card and then I will carefully lift up, trying to leave that battery pack and button in place on the base of my card. Then I will trace around it here. No one's going to see this. It doesn't really matter that I'm drawing on it. If I install this so that the button is facing the slot machine, it's going to be really difficult to get the battery out. But if I install it upside down, it doesn't actually affect how the button works and I have easier access. So here's the die that's in that press stamp and die combo. And I am just going to place that right over what I traced and run that through my die cutting machine. So I've added my white shimmer cardstock onto my card base. I opened it up, right? So I didn't cut all the way through the card, but now I have this little door. It's only going to cut 3 sides and there's a score line on one side and that will open from the inside. So I've added some removable adhesive onto the back and I will add that onto my Jackpot slot machine. Then I can start arranging my lights. It's actually so much easier to arrange lights this way than if that battery part was taped to the card base and then I'm trying to arrange lights and then I've got wires going from one to the other. So that's the other real advantage of this. There is a little yellow part on the light that is the light and I'm sort of puzzle piecing them into the holes I poked with my pokey tool. And there you go. I always check, like always along the way. They are flashing beautifully. I like the placement. And then I'm just going to use some Scotch tape and tape them down. All of that, Scotch tape, easy peasy. I'm going to come around all of this and I am going to add the world's best foam tape. It is the perfect thickness for these lights. If you're using a regular foam tape, you'll probably have to double it up, but check. You would hate to put the whole thing together and find out you actually needed to triple it, okay? So I am going around the outside edges. I'm being careful, but I am forgetting at the moment that there is going to be that little hatch on the inside. So I always double check, right? I'm going to place this on here. I'm going to open up the card, and when I flip this open, I can see some of the tape showing. Well, the good news is this is repositionable for 30 minutes, and so I can pull that up and trim some away, and no one will ever know. It won't damage my cardstock. It won't anything. It also means that if I put it down in the wrong spot or it's crooked or something, I can peel the whole thing up and put it back down later, and no one's going to know. So I wanted like a little frame around the outside edge. I thought it was a little too plain, but I did want to add another layer of cardstock over my hatch. So I took some A2 nesting rectangles and I cut the thinnest frame, just the largest die and the next smallest together. And I get this little blue frame I can glue onto the outside. And now it looks like I layered my 2 pieces of cardstock, but it's really just this tiny little frame around the outside. That's going to give me a little bit of added interest that I really liked. I was kind of getting to the end and not happy with the background. So that was my solution. I peeled off all the release paper and then I will go to set this down on my card base. I'm putting it all the way down at the bottom. This one is big. She's big, right? And so I want to make sure I have room for that light up at the top. I check my lights by pushing the button. I open that hatch door and make sure I can get my battery out. I'm adding a little removable adhesive to the door, so then it will sort of stick to the top of that battery situation. And now I can figure out this last bit of lights. I just set it gently down on top and I push the button and you can see the lights beautifully right through this glitter cardstock. So I'm just going to glue the whole thing down right on top of it, and I am not going to worry about trying to remove little lights or clip them out of that strand of the die cut. I am adding my little light as my last addition at the very end. Honestly, you guys, I wasn't sure it was going to fit. If you were going to light up the light on the top, I might do a 5x7 card. But here I have just a little extra foam tape behind it, so it's supported, and our card is finished. Happy birthday. You can see the shine on that sentiment now. You push the button, you get this really great flickering, twinkling light situation. My friends, I hope this is inspiring for you. I would love to know, what should I light up next? Do you have a favorite die set or a stamp set that you would love to see with some Pear Blossom press lights? Thank you all so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.